Hello, everyone. Ron Zarate here, and you're watching Timing is Everything. And welcome to Chapter 1, Episode 11, Intro to Turned Away. So, as mentioned before, we are now in 1992 in this journey of mine, and I've written around 7 completed songs in this year. I've decided to showcase my top 3 songs for you, which I started off with I'm Caged In, which I hope you enjoyed the story and music to that one. As you can tell, I've taken a different approach in my writing style to this point. Lots of factors at home affected this, and I was personally experiencing a ton of change in my life. While I look back at that today, I see it now as it was both positive and negative change. So today, I would like to spend some time with you to discuss how I came to write my next song that I will share with you titled Turned Away. So, what I can remember, it was the summer of 92. I was out of school on a summer break. I had planned out what I was about to do by reading the music ads. Every time I went to the local music stores, I would grab all of their local ads. I would call a lot of them, which most of them would actually turn out not to be in my favor as far as partnering up with other musicians. I remember calling a lot of these ads, and most people were older than I was. Most were also playing some really heavy music. So it was a little intimidating to me as I was just starting. Most also had played gigs and all of that as well. A lot of the ads had an address to a place asking to show up at a certain time and day with your gear to audition or just to jam. Later on, I will talk about how I took up these offers, but for this story specifically, and for now, I didn't do that. So reading all these ads, I was like, man, how am I ever going to get to these places with my drums? I didn't even have a state ID, let alone a driver's license yet. I was only 14 years old. And I didn't have real actual gear that was mine other than my drums. So on these ads, I would also see listings for recording studios. So I went through all of those and decided to call them, all of them. So let me tell you this. No one answered. Not one single place. I left messages. No one ever returned my calls. I wondered, do these numbers even work? Or if they do they even want business? It was frustrating to say the least. Over time, and not getting any answers or calls returned, I started to look over the ads and just reading on specialties of these recording studios that were featured. I settled on 3 studios that I decided I would pay a visit to. So after a few weeks of doing this, I woke up one morning on a Saturday, got dressed up, hopped on my local bus, and started heading over to the first place. I had no idea where I was going or what buses I need to take or anything like that. I remember getting on the first bus and asking the bus driver, hey, what buses do I need to take to get to this address? Luckily, he was nice enough to tell me, hey, you got to go here, here, here. And then after telling my reason, right, they were pretty nice enough to give me free transfers. So I wound up taking 3 buses to the first recording studio, as it was completely on the other side of town where I lived. I do remember when getting off my last bus, I had to walk about half a mile or so to finally get to it. And let me tell you this was a 2.5-hour bus trip after waiting to transfer 3 times. So in all, a 5-hour round trip. So yeah, that's my entire day. So as I'm walking up to the specific recording studio, I see someone walking out of the studio. I remember getting so excited thinking, wow, here we go. I'm actually going to meet someone from a real recording studio. I didn't even care who it was, honestly. And honestly, now that I think back, I don't even know if that person was part of the staff at the studio or not. I just saw him walk out of it and immediately thought that he was part of the staff. So yeah, I was that excited. So as I walked up to the door, I knocked, waited a few seconds, knocked again, nothing. I looked into a small window that was there on the side of the door and couldn't see anything. I could hear a faint sound of drums and bass hit, so I knew someone had to be in there. So I waited a couple minutes or so, see if I would see someone pass by, or that guy I saw coming out would return. 5 minutes pass or so. I knock again, this time harder. Nothing. So I decided to take a stroll around the studio to see if I may run into anyone, or see anyone actually. I went all around the entire studio and saw nothing. So when I got back to the front, I knocked again, this time even harder. Finally, through the small window, I see someone coming. So this guy opens the door, looks at me and says, "Yeah, can I help you?" I quickly say, "Hi, my name is Ron, and I've been trying to contact you guys for a couple of weeks now. Left some messages, but no one has called me back. I came over to see if I could speak to someone about your studio." So he looks at me and then he asks, "What company do I represent?" I say, "I'm not with any company. I just represent myself." Then he says, "Oh, are you a musician?" As he asked it, I quickly thought to myself, no, I'm not. I've been only playing for a little over a year at this point in my garage. But I didn't want to say that to him just yet. So I said, "Yes, I am an amateur musician, and I'm looking for a recording studio, but first would like to speak to someone about it." He then dealt the dagger to me at this point and said, "Oh, we only deal with record companies and managers representing musicians. Maybe call one of those and start off that way." I was like, what? Man, I felt like I was just throwing a ton of bricks at me. So I tell him, "Do you have any contacts that I may have so I can call?" He's like, "Sorry, I'm really busy right now. We have a band here today, and we are in the middle of recording, so perhaps you can call us back on Monday. Sorry, gotta go." And then he just closed the door. So I just stood there, and that was that. I was there, standing in disbelief, and I told myself, wow, what was that? I didn't know what to do at that point, so I walked the half a mile or so back to the bus stop, waited, and proceeded to take my 2.5 hour trip back home. So yeah, the entire bus ride, I was just listening to music and thinking, man, this is going to be harder than I thought. I really did think that I could walk over to the studio and talk to someone there, and that they would actually be open to talk to me. But nope. So it wasn't going to work that way. So when I got home that evening, I remember looking at the other two studios that I had left, some scribble and writing and things about it that I wanted to visit also. So I called the next day, and again, no answer. So the following weekend, I decided to do the same thing. Set out another trek out to this other, second studio, now heading over that way, right? So this one was a bit closer to me. It took me a little under 2 hours this time to get by bus, as it was a little outside of downtown. So when I finally get there, I knocked, and immediately someone answered. I was like, yes, finally. So this guy asked, "Hey, how can I help you?" I introduced myself, and I asked if I could speak to someone regarding their studio. He then asked what I wanted to know. I say, "I'm an amateur musician, and I want to record music that I've written." He then says, "Awesome, follow me." I was like, what? Wow, can't be that easy, right? So I couldn't believe this was happening. So now I'm following this guy now. We go through this long corridor, and it has glass windows on each side, so I can see through to the other side. And as we're walking, I can see parts of the studio. I see a drum kit that's set up on one part. I see some amps in another room. I see mics set up. I'm literally starting to get goosebumps just walking through this hallway, following this guy to wherever he's going to take me. So we finally get to this huge office at the end. He sits down at this huge desk, and he asks me to take a seat. So I sit at the desk in front of him. I look at the wall, and I see, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 records on the wall. I can't tell who they are, but probably because I was just so excited to be there. He introduces himself by name only. And when he tells me his full name, I see on the wall there are plaques showing that same name and then underneath it says like studio owner or something. So I said to myself, wow, jackpot. Then he asks, "So Ron, tell me your story." So I begin. I tell him how I grew up listening to music through my parents, grandparents, cousins, and how I was introduced to instruments by them. I also tell him how I started playing and what I have done up to this point, self-teaching myself everything that I know. I show him a tape that I had been carrying around that had a few songs that I recorded on a karaoke machine. I tell him how much I play and practice every day. After that, I'll never forget this. He smirks, takes a sigh, and says, "Oh, Ron, how old are you again?" And I tell him I'm 14, but I'll be 15 soon. He then states, "All right, you know what? Let's hear the tape." So I hand it to him. He puts it into this machine that he had there, and it blares out through some speakers on the ceiling, loud. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I'm like looking up. It felt crazy to listen to music that I made on these speakers overhead, loud. So we listened to the entire thing. The tape had 2 completed songs and 1 song with only guitars and vocals. These 3 songs you've heard, actually. The first one was Breathe, Set Me Free, and the guitars and vocals for a song called The Merry One. All of these songs I have re-recorded today now, and you can listen to their story and how they sound on previous episodes. When the tape finished, he states again, "Okay, so you are 14? How many people are in your band?" I tell him none, it's only me. He says, "Where have you played at?" I tell him nowhere, only in my garage. He also asks, what kind of equipment do I have, and do I own a PA system? And also asks me, how did I record this tape? I tell him I don't have a guitar yet, but was saving for one. I borrowed a friend's guitar to record this, and I had some drums that were mine. And I also told him I don't have any recording gear, and I recorded this on a karaoke machine. He laughs and tells me this, "Ron, you are on your way then. You have a ton of potential, but first, you need to get a band if you want to play music like this." And then he tells me, "No one is going to listen to this music with a solo artist." And I looked at him puzzled, like, what? And he also tells me to ask some friends or find some people that want to play. You have rehearsal space already for what it seems like. Save up, get some better equipment, he tells me. The guys that come here have good equipment and have been playing for a long time, and they get to come record here. Plus, they usually have been playing shows for a while and have more songs under their belt, he winds up telling me. So I quickly tell him, I'm sure they started somewhere. How can I get my start? And he says, well, get a band. Get more experience, and you will be on your way. He stated that I was very young and how I needed to gain more experience, etc. He stated he really liked what he heard, but felt I'm not ready yet. So we said our goodbyes, and he walked me out, wished me luck. As I rode the bus back home, I was so crushed. More than before, you can imagine. I kept thinking to myself, how am I ever going to get my music out there? No one lets me record. No one gives me the time of day, and they want me to get a band together. How can I? None of my friends want to play anymore. They're all doing their own thing now. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I get home, go to my room, lay on my bed, and do what I always do. Just listen to music blaring on my Walkman. I was still so upset. I look over and see my friend's guitar sitting there in my room. So I get up, grab it, and started playing it as fast as I could. With these frustrations that I was experiencing, I was able to write 3 riffs. 2, I wound up making them into songs. The other one was just a riff that I made for fun for me to play, and I never made that one into a song. The first riff became the basis for this song specifically that I am here to talk about today, Turned Away. The second riff became a song I wrote later on that I will actually be showcasing next. So as I come up with this first riff for this song, I dropped the guitar to a D tuning. So at this point now I know a little bit more about tunings and just started wailing on the guitar, letting all my frustrations out. I was so upset and felt like I was never going to be able to pull this off and I would never be able to record my music. So the more I played, the more upset it made me. And that made me play faster and harder. So fast and hard that I was literally huffing and puffing from playing so hard and fast and sweating and everything. And that's just because I was sitting on my bed. As I wrote the main riff to the song, I decided to use it as the chorus. As I played it back, I wound up adding a few more chords to it, which became a verse, and another part I used as a bridge. When I put it all together, I thought it sounded great. During this time, I was also listening to a lot of music that played octave notes on guitar. I had no idea what an octave note was at that time. I just learned how to play that by mimicking the sound I was hearing on tapes I had or listening to the radio. It wasn't until years later that I learned that what I wrote and was playing for this part was an octave. So for the lead guitar, I wrote towards the end of the song, I decided to add an octave note at the end of that lead piece. It was my first time ever writing an octave note in any of my songs I had ever written to this point. I thought it sounded really cool, so I ended the song that way, bending some octave notes. I tried to write some lyrics, and I could not get what just occurred out of my head. I was writing lyrics based on what just happened, but all I can hear in my head was the thought of being turned away. I was still frustrated, and that was the only thing that kept coming to my head. So I thought, let me write a song based on this experience I just had. So I got a piece of paper, titled, put the title on top, and just put "Turned Away." And as I attempted to write lyrics to it, it wasn't sitting with me. The song was a bit faster and harder than other songs I had written to this point. So I tried to add the words "turned away" into the song and in the lyrics and made them fit into the chorus. When I played it back and sang these words over the chorus, just these two words, I felt it worked perfectly and captured my frustrations. I tried to add lyrics to the verse, but I wasn't feeling it either. So this is when I thought, hey, you know what? This is what exactly happened to me. I've been turned away now by 2 record companies. So yeah, that's how I feel. And this song makes me feel that way. So I thought, wonder if I could just make the song work with just leaving those 2 words in it only. And guess what? I made it work. I thought it was a funny thing to do, but at the same time, I thought it was the right thing to do based on what I experienced. So I fell asleep that night, letting my frustrations out of being turned away 2 times to this point. And as I woke up the next morning, look over, roll out of bed, and plugged in the guitar right away, because that's what I did, and played it again, sang with it, and it just felt right. I laughed again, found it hilarious, but it was the truth to me. Turned away. Was I really just going to sing that for the entire song? So I decided to leave it like this. No other words added to it, even titled with the same words. I thought it was perfect as to what occurred. So today, I'm happy to say that I will be able to play you a sample of the 4-track recording I made of this song that is titled Turned Away. So check this out. again, another old recording that takes me back. As I rehash this story in my head now, it is crazy to think that here I am again today, some 30 years later, still writing all the music myself. As mentioned, I've been in and out of bands for a long time, right? Over 20 bands. I've played with hundreds of people, yet I still stay alone. I like to think that it's partly my writing style, which you have seen so far is basic writing as I was just learning. I will get more creative as my story continues up to the point to where you yourself may question, what is that dude thinking? Or what is he doing? But as I've stated, when I write music, there's no rules, there's no boundaries. I don't follow anything at all. I don't follow any cadence or anything like that, and just write my own feelings of what I'm feeling at that point. I don't care what I'm playing or what I'm doing or anything like that, as long as it sounds good in my ear. It is all about listening to me, all about melody. I'm fortunate enough that I can sit in a room and crank out 10 songs if I wanted to in one night. I have no issue with that. It just doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't faze me or anything. I love doing it. To me, it's fun. Everyone has a different writing style, and I'm excited to be able to now show you mine through this channel. So again, I've decided to keep this song as close to the original as possible. I've taken this song and re-recording it using everything I know today, but still trying to keep its originality. I thank you for listening to my story of this song. This is now the 6th song of my first series of 12 songs that formed my youth from the ages of 13 to 16. Yes, we are now halfway through the first chapter. I welcome you to let me know what you think in the comments, and I thank you for the time spent listening to the story. Please put a comment. I beg you. I want to hear. So please provide any feedback you may have, as I would love to hear it. Trust me. Please be sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on new videos and content as my musical journey through YouTube gets published. So to end this episode, please stay tuned for episode 12, and where I will be showcasing the actual song written today, titled Turned Away. Thanks for watching.